Hello again, everybody. Welcome to 7 Minutes or Less. We're a show we talk about Christian topics in 7 minutes or less. And as usual, we're joined every week by Brother Bruce Bennett, who is the senior pastor here at First Methodist Malvern. Welcome to you.
Thank you, Tony. Didn't we just do this like last night or something?
No. We had to rush one through and did it on Monday is what we did anyway. Hey, today's subject, we discussed this the other day, and we pulled one out, and it's about micromanaging. And whoever's had a boss who was a micromanager certainly understands what we're going to talk about here. To define it, first of all, let me explain. The dictionary explains or defines micromanage as to manage especially with excessive control or attention to details, to direct or conduct the activities of a group or an enterprise by micromanaging them. So he micromanaged every detail of the budget, but there's certainly more to it. He micromanaged every move I made. So with that in mind, going to the Christian topic side, does God micromanage?
It's an interesting topic, certainly. Most people in the world probably, billions of people, think that life is determined, that every aspect is micromanaged by some power or some God who oversees everything, moves every molecule, so that we really don't have human choice. And I'm amazed at how popular that is in the world, even in our own culture. Que sera, sera, what will be, will be. Everything's determined. There's not much I can do to change it. And so the theological question is, how much does God micromanage? How much does God cause to happen? How much does God control? And do we have any control? And there are great theologians of the past. John Calvin, who is the classical theologian of the Reformation, seems to indicate that God has already determined everything before the foundation of the world, or at least He determined who would be saved. So human beings have no choice about that. If you were chosen, you can't be unchosen. And if you're not chosen, you can't be chosen. And so it's a very interesting topic to think about. How much does God control? I think about that a lot in my personal life and when I read the Bible. Well, I always find places in the Bible that seem to indicate that we have great freedom as human beings. We have God who relates to people, and when they choose a certain thing, God seems to make an adjustment in His plan to coincide with a good or a bad decision that people have made. He holds us responsible when we make poor decisions. How could He hold us responsible if we had no choice in the matter? A long time ago, I figured out that we have a lot of freedom and that maybe God doesn't control every molecule, every atom in the universe. And I figured this out when I was about 13. I was riding a motorcycle and I came to an intersection. And I was on my motorcycle. I wasn't going very fast at the intersection, but the intersection was a blind intersection in that there were woods at the intersection. So it just so happened that a friend of mine in the neighborhood where I grew up, Charles was his name, he every day drove his car down a hill to that intersection and then cut the corner while he squealed his tires. And so Charles was coming down the hill, I was coming to the intersection, and he cut that corner just enough that we didn't see each other, and I hit him and ended up in his windshield with a broken arm. Now, when you think about that, you'd have to say, well, God was driving the motorcycle, and God was driving the car, squealing around the corner to cause that to happen. I promise you, I was not unconscious. I was driving the motorcycle, and my friend Charles was driving the car. It was just a happenstance that we were at the wrong place at the wrong time, or more or less I was at the wrong place at the right time. And I know that God didn't cause that to happen. So my inclination is to look at the world and say, there's a lot of things that God chooses not to control. He could control it, but He chooses not to. He gives us great freedom to move toward Him or move away from Him, and we have all this freedom. But the end result is, this is the question that people have when you talk about this, well, what about the sovereignty of God? How much does God rule? And doesn't it thwart God's rule if we have all this freedom? And the reality is that God's rule is so great that our little decisions that we make every day does not in any way affect God's final determination to save and bring to Himself as many as He possibly can. Yet He gives us the freedom to choose not to come to Him. God's sovereignty isn't negated or compromised by our freedom. God's sovereignty is so great that at the end of time, things will turn out the way God intended them to turn out, even with our freedom.
Well, so God is not a micromanager.
That's right.
I think you answered that one. He gives us a free will, but you brought up another idea for a future show, and that is predestination. So we will let you think about that one for a long time before we get into that.
That's good.
If you would like to ask Brother Bruce a question here on the program, all you have to do is send it to info@firstmethodistmalvern.org, info@firstmethodistmalvern.org. And of course, these videos are available on vimeo.com, First Methodist Malvern. And I hope you will go watch back versions because they're all up there. Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks, Brother Bruce, for your being here.
Thank you so much, Tony.
And we'll see you next time.